Okay, if you're from New Jersey and you're tuning into this video to hate on me again for talking smack about one of your players, I didn't do that. I didn't do that for Jack Hughes. We didn't make the video talking about how he sucks. We said that he's actually pretty good and that he outscored Patrick Kane in terms of draft plus 3-point per game numbers. Sure, he's probably not going to match Steve Yzerman anytime soon because that guy had 150-point seasons, but for Jack Hughes, he is a good player, and we were very clear when we said that he was a good player, which is why we made our video just going over some previous comparisons. This time around, though, we're not talking about Jack Hughes. We're not talking about a guy that went first overall in 2019. We're going over a guy that went first overall in 2017 instead. Another center, another guy that's not too big. He doesn't have the same razzle-dazzle flash and flair as Jack Hughes does, but he has some pretty good two-way responsibility. He's got some pretty good leadership. He's got some defensively responsible aspects to his game that make him so valuable as well, and he was the first overall pick in a 2017 draft where he probably should not have gone first overall. Today we're talking about Nico Hischier. Now, Hischier is a player that I've liked for a very long time. Ever since he suited up for the Halifax Mooseheads back in 2016-17, everybody was in love with Nico Hischier. He had 86 points in 57 games played, and even though he went out there and actually produced a heck of a lot of points, you still saw the defensive responsibility, you still saw the board battle potential, you still saw what it was that he did in his own zone that progressed play forward for his team. Nico Hischier is just a pretty good, solid, all-around hockey player who happened to go first overall. He made the NHL right away, he had 52 points in 82 games played, and now, a few years later, hey, he's coming off a year where as a 23-year-old, 6'1", 194 as a left-handed center, signed till the end of 2027 making $7.25 million a year. He had 60 points in 70 games, 21 goals, 39 assists. He also was a point per game for Team Switzerland at the World Championships, and he's the captain of the Devils now. So, from all of this, we can gather that Hischier is a good player. He's definitely a good enough player for the Devils and what it is that they have. He probably should not have gone first overall in 2017 with hindsight. That honor probably belongs to Nolan Patrick, who went right after. Just kidding, he probably shouldn't have gone anywhere near the top either, considering how his career has gone. But right after Nico Hischier and Nolan Patrick went 1 and 2, you had a selection of 3 guys that are all pretty good players. Miro, Heiskanen of the Dallas Stars, Cale, Makar of the Colorado Avalanche, and Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. All 3 of these guys probably are better players than Nico and Nolan, I'm sorry. But if you take a look at where things have gone since then, there are still other players throughout the 2017 draft, the first round, the other rounds, etc., that have proven to be pretty good. How good exactly, though? Let's go over onto the NHL's Instagram page and see where they redrafted all these players 5 years down the line. Now, what they did was they made a post. It's just a redraft of the top 10 using the same teams in the same positions, but instead selecting players that they feel should have gone there instead, with hindsight included. Now, the top 3... not surprising, it's Makar, Heiskanen, and Pettersson. Okay, these are the 3 guys that are kind of there, but I wanted to reveal picks 4 to 10 in a reverse order, just to make things a little bit more dramatic and to piss off Devils fans a little bit more. So, with the 10th overall pick, the Florida Panthers, who originally selected Owen Tippett, will end up taking Marty Necas, who was drafted 12th overall in real life by the Hurricanes. The 9th overall pick belongs to the Red Wings. They originally selected Michael Rasmussen. Here, they're actually taking Hischier, which means that picks 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 are all supposedly better than him. 8th overall, it was originally Casey Mittelstadt instead. The Sabres are selecting Jeremy Swayman. 7th overall, the Rangers took Elias Andersson. In this redraft, they're taking Nick Suzuki. 6th overall, the Vegas Golden Knights took Cody Glass. They are instead taking Jake Ottinger. 5th overall, the Vancouver Canucks really selected Pettersson. Instead, they're taking Robertson. And 4th overall, you have the Colorado Avalanche. Instead of going with Makar, they're going with Robert Thomas. So this is kind of the video I wanted to make here because the NHL had a redraft where they put Jeremy Swayman, Nick Suzuki, Jake Ottinger, Jason Robertson, Robert Thomas, Elias Pettersson, Miro Heiskanen, and Cale Makar all above Nico Hischier. Now, while I don't dispute that the top 3 probably deserve that spot, it kind of gets a little bit muddy when I start thinking to myself, is Jeremy Swayman really a better pick or a better player than Nico? What about Nick Suzuki? I love Nick Suzuki, but the head-to-head comparison isn't really in his favor. Same could be said about Jake Ottinger. You could debate Jason Robertson. Robert Thomas, heck even, is a guy that I feel is sort of in a similar tier as Nico. So let's start arguing about a pretty random and not really all too important list just for the sake of getting people mad. Shall we? Let's go out there and talk about Nico Hischier and Jeremy Swayman, because Swayman, I mean, he just broke into the NHL recently. He's on Boston. He took over after Tuukka Rask left. He had 41 games played this season and a .914 save percentage, which is fantastic. But do I really think that he should have gone over Nico Hischier, who, I mean, he's the captain of the Devils, and the guy had 60 points in 70 games played? Do the math over a full 82, 60 divvy 70 multiplied out by a full season. He was on pace for 70 points. Is a 70-point defensively responsible two-way center more valuable than a first-year goaltender? I'm not sure. You go over on Nick Suzuki too, and this is where some people might actually get a little bit ticked off with what I have to say here, but Nick Suzuki actually produced worse than Nico did this season. Now I know point production is not everything, but Nick Suzuki in 21-22 had himself 61 points in 82 games. Nico Hischier had the same amount of points in a significantly fewer amount of games played. He is already the captain, and I feel like he's a lot more polished defensively, whereas Nick Suzuki, while he is good himself, I don't think he's at the caliber of a Nico Hischier just yet. You then go over to the players above him. Jake Oettinger. We know that Jake Oettinger was incredible for the Dallas Stars in the playoffs against the Calgary Flames. We know that he's probably the best goaltending prospect this team has had in a very long time. He is also 23 years old, and he broke into the NHL this season, getting a .914 save percentage in 48 games played. He's been pretty good for a while, but I don't know if the sample size is big enough for me to say definitively, okay, I would rather have Oettinger on my team instead of Nico Hischier. You, of course, also have Jason Robertson here. By the way, Dallas absolutely killed that draft. Robertson, Oettinger, and Heiskanen, all top 6 in this redraft, and they were all selected by Dallas in real life. Absolutely phenomenal drafting right there. But Jason Robertson, while I do love my local Filipino boys, and okay, no, he's not local, he's from America. I'm in Canada, by the way. Jason Robertson had himself 79 points in 74 games played. He's an absolute beast, and while I'll acknowledge that the conversation for point production definitely gives Robertson the edge here, I also do want to point out that he plays on such a good line with Pavelski and Hintz. I know he drives the play himself, and he's part of the reason that line is even as good as it is, but I kind of feel like if Nico Hischier was given a lot more of a leash, and they gave him players like Pavelski and like Hintz to play with, I do think that Nico would produce a little bit better. That's not to discredit the players that are on the New Jersey Devils. You have Jesper Bratt, who is really good. Sharon Govich showed up this season. Of course, you have Jack Hughes, but when it comes to top 6 production, I feel like Nico is shouldering a little bit more weight than Robertson was for the Dallas Stars. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my first overall bias kind of talking there. But you then go over onto Robert Thomas, who also produced more points per game than Nico Hischier did this season. He actually produced a similar number to Jason Robertson. Robert Thomas had 77 points in 72 games played. Robertson had 79 points in 74 games played. Robert Thomas really came alive this season. The guy maxed out at 42 points in his recent career high in 2020, and then absolutely exploded for 30 more points on the year this year. But Robert Thomas was always sort of that Bo Horvat-esque kind of player with a little bit more of an offensive flair, I feel. Two-way responsibility, good defensive instincts, etc., etc. And honestly, I feel like in my heart, the way these guys play, I feel like Nico is a lot more similar to Robert Thomas than you would initially think based off of the raw point production. I do think that the Devils are kind of on the upswing here, and a lot of these players are going to get better as their years go on. So for Nico Hischier right now, even though the NHL might say that he is a 9th overall player in a redraft, I would probably say he's at the very worst 6th, maybe 7th. I would probably be inclined to have him as high as number 4 or 5 if you really made the argument and twisted my arm, but maybe next year this is different. Maybe in 2 years this list, the redraft, looks a lot different because Nico Hischier, alongside of Jack Hughes and Sharon Govich and Bratt, hopefully if he resigns, all grow together with better production, better offensive capabilities, and better consistency as well, plus the fact that Nico's already the captain of the team and showing off these great leadership abilities. It makes me think that he kind of got snubbed a little bit in this redraft list. I don't know. You can talk in the comments if you're a fan of any of these other teams over here. The St. Louis Blues drafting Thomas, or Dallas and Robertson and Oettinger and all that. If you're a Canadiens fan, talk to me in the comments. Why do you think Suzuki is better than Nico Hischier if you disagree with my assessment? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.